So as Scott mentioned here, we wanted to give an update on Bridge. And now that we have officially advertised our first Bridge model authoring pilot project here that we're going to be walking through here today, we felt that it was a good time to kind of go through. We know we've been through some of the different, some of the different example and sample projects, projects from other states. But now that we have something specifically for PennDOT, specifically for using the details that you all are used to seeing in a project type that's very common here in the state, with being an integral abutment, a bridge replacement here that you're seeing on the screen. We felt again it was a good time to kind of go through this, give you some visuals of what this actually looks like, how contractors, other stakeholders, reviewers can go through and get the information they need from the project files. Okay, so that's what we're going to do here today. And this, what you're seeing on the screen here, is the SR 3006 pilot project. I want to make sure I point out here that this was designed and modeled by PennDOT. Josh Meese did an excellent job here, kind of through our guidance and support, developing this model per the standards that we're developing, again, as part of the Digital Delivery Directive 2025. This is in District 4. Again, District 4, the team there, in-house team, again, did an excellent job, kind of just, working with us, working through some, limitations and obviously a new process and everything there, but really came together and got this thing out. Also, I want to make sure I mention McCormick Taylor, who did the structural review, or the review of the bridge calculations and specifically the model. Went through the process first time with some of the Bentley model review tools. Again, did an excellent job working as a team here through a new process, to kind of make sure we're checking and reviewing what we need to review with the new process, and kind of how we do that in this new model world here. Okay, so before I get going, I want to make sure I point that out. So what we're going to do today here is go through this, the actual deliverables. So these are the same deliverable files here that were advertised, and just kind of show you some of the key points here. Obviously, we won't be able to go extremely in depth with an overview here, but we'll be able to go through a lot of information. Okay. So, and as Scott mentioned, we're going to show you kind of two forms of these files. So the first one here is probably what most of you on the call are used to seeing here, and more of this is the DGN files that were the contractual files. In this particular case, we're opening here an Open Roads Designer, but similar type interface for Bentley, all the way from MicroStation, Open Bridge Modeler, and Open Roads Designer here. Then we're gonna go to Bentley Synchro. That is another option that has been developed for contractors and other stakeholders to view the files using a cloud-based software that we kind of export and move the files up there, and we'll show you what that looks like in some of the different, say, the benefits, limitations, or different aspects of what you can do in the different software here. Okay. If you do have questions, I don't know if we have anybody monitoring the chat here, but with this group size, I would say let's kind of either type your questions in or hold them to the end. I'm sure we have some time built in for that. We can get to those at the end here. Okay. So with that, we're going to jump right in. So here's the project. This is just an overview of the model and the roadway, kind of that adjacent roadway. So this is essentially the entire project encapsulated here, with adjacent roadway and the bridge model here. You can see. Okay. So we have integral abutment replacement. Okay. See some of the riprap shown here, and some of the grading here that's also included in this, as well as, again, the adjacent roadway grading there, as we come back here. Okay, so it gives you an idea, it gives you oriented a little bit about what this project is. So the first thing I want to mention here is this is what we call a federated model or a container file. So this is essentially all the different discipline files are all referenced into one file here that can be viewed together. Okay. So if I open up here, just where we're at in the project wise, you can see all these different files here. These are the different files. So we have different bridge element files here for beams, decks, barriers, abutments. So all those are individual files that were developed in OpenBridge Modeler software. Okay. And then we are referencing them into this container file along with the roadway and associated information. And I'll show you why we do that here in the next few minutes. So I'll go through a couple different reasons why we do that. Okay. So the first reason we do that is you can see here that we have what Bentley calls save views here listed on the side. Okay, and this is just one of the options that have always been within MicroStation. But what we can do here is with all the reference together, we can set up specific levels on, display styles, certain information that we want to see in particular views. We can set up a particular view that can be easily navigated to by the users. Okay, so we have in this particular case we're looking at the 104C structure 3D view bridge and roadway. If we want to look at the bridges only, we don't want to look at an overview of the bridges only, not just not included with the roadway information. When this thing catches up with me here, we can go ahead and navigate just to the bridges only information here. Wise is acting real slow on me here today. Okay, but now here we're going to again the same bridge here. We're just not the roadway information is turned off. Essentially, the reference is turned off, and here you can see we have a different display style here with more of a transparent view. You can kind of see through the beams there and everything. Okay, so there's a couple reasons why we really like this attribute, especially for the bridge kind of projects and information. Here now with this, we can set up not only just overview. Obviously, we have we have 3D views here, and we can always spin and use this information. But we can also set up particular views for elements here. So here's just a pile cap view where we have the reinforcement. So you can start to see that we can set up views that are similar to what people are used to seeing in traditional 2D plan sets, 2D views. Okay, I think this is extremely helpful, especially for those that are just getting into this workflow and kind of looking through that, to have some of that at least in a place where you can find information, description. Or title and description here. If I bring this out here, we have a description of those views so that people can get oriented and have those views to kind of look back to find the information they need. Okay. And we do have what we've set up and what we've called a crosswalk. Sorry, getting my terms mixed up here, but I'm going to navigate to that quickly here just so you can see what that looks like. And that's essentially looking at the information reviewings. This is going through a similar set of plans. I think we went over this with this group here before, but kind of goes through a plan. We have some key sheets up front, but literally goes through a plan set here and color codes it and tells you where you can find that information in a digital deliverable here. Okay. So for example, if we get to a kind of a pile cap view here, we see a lot of yellow, which is looking at the model and setting up 3D views from that. So that's the information again that we just saw in those in that particular view. So we can go through, obviously we have several views here, and what we're trying to get at is we're not just handing a 3D model to a contractor and saying, hey, figure it out, go through all the level list, figure out everything. We're giving them a starting point at least, and the idea is that they use these save views to kind of get to the information they need as a starting point and add and measure whatever they need from that point. Okay. We also do have particular views here that we have annotated. Okay, so these are generated from the model here, but we have, excuse me, we have gone through and put on some typical annotations. So there's certain views that, and I'm a bridge engineer, that just going through it is kind of staple. You want to be able to find that information quickly. You don't want to have to measure a model every time to find that information. Okay, and one of those is the typical section. Okay, so we have this information. We have beam spacing, everything looking exactly like you would typically see right on a typical section view in a traditional plan set. But you have to remember here, this is generated from the model. So this is just basically a snapshot of where we are in the model, section through our model. So for example, this is through the end block of our beams, right? So you're not seeing the void in the pre-stress box beams of this set. Okay, so if we were going to do this again, probably we would have maybe taken the section at a slightly different place. Okay. But that's what some of the things you have to remember here as you're going through it, and kind of looking at it, that you are in these particular views we are generating from the model, so they are snapshots of the model. Okay, so that's a good example there. So we have a few other ones such as elevations, plan overview, those type of views here that all have, their typical annotations on there with those key information. Okay. The other thing, there's just certain information that's easier conveyed with 2D details. All right. So we, for example, a big one, right, is just general notes, right? That's just a 2D thing. It's just easier to have that information just in note form, right? We're not eliminating all of that here with a 3D model. Okay. So we have a particular save view here to our save notes. Okay, our general notes section. Okay, now you'll notice here this looks very similar to our 2D details, right? That would be in a PDF, but we have generated this now in the DGN file, and now they can be these general notes and everything else can now be referenced into the DGN file in a digital format, and all can be accessed through this federated model or container file, right? So we can save views directly there. We can basically have a one-stop shop for all our information. Okay, so that's another reason why we like this federated model and kind of pulling everything together here and going with these save views. Okay, so we have general notes. Additionally, we have, all of our typical information. We have approximate quantities here. As you can see here, this is actually a linked Excel sheet that we can, somebody can take this information directly here, but it's a linked spreadsheet that is also included in the deliverable files. So if anybody wants to just go and use the Excel and the information out of the Excel here for quantities, deck elevations, those types of things, they can take that file and they have all the information here. That's what's really, this is just essentially a view or a replication of that data here within this information, so that we can kind of save to it and get to it easily. Okay. So you can see there's the ratings, reinforcement schedule, those types of things are all tabular information that's available here in the same chart form here, but also said that the information behind it, the Excel spreadsheet, is also available in the deliverable information for a digital file. Couple other things I'll go through here. As we mentioned, there are some 2D or some information that's just easier to convey in 2D details, or it's just more efficient to do so at this point. Okay, so a good example of that is some of the waterproofing details. Okay, so kind of coming in here, trying to do this in a 3D model and have somebody understand all of this information here and be able to pull it out of a 3D model. For example, the preformed cellular polystyrene. They're going to pick that out of the model here, 2 inches thick, or even some of the membranes and waterproofing membranes and everything. Like that just is more easily and more efficiently and effectively conveyed with just a 2D standard detail. Okay, so we have these standard details for certain information that again is available. We can still, because it's part of the DGN file, part of this digital file deliverable, we can still have particular save views to that, so they can navigate to the information very quickly and have that again in their hands, available quickly with that. And again, this is want to differentiate between some of those generated views that we were talking about from the 3D model. These are just 2D standard details that are put in here for supplemental information. Okay. So we have several of those here. You can kind of see those lined up here. We also have, now that we're in, kind of have this information all digitally, we can also now put in things like BC standards. We can just copy that information in here. In this case, we use raster images here of the BD standards. But this is something from the inspectors. We got some feedback from the inspectors. We got to say, hey, can we just pull in the BC standards of this, so we don't have to have that as a separate thing now that we're all in the model format. We're going to be looking at this information. So we said, yeah, we can definitely do that. So this again is just the applicable BC standards, raster images brought in here, and now we can pull that in a separate file and be able to reference and have save views directly to that information, that they can come and pick the information they need from that. Okay. Okay. So hopefully that gives you an overview of the information here. What we're going to do now is kind of leave our ORD and DGN files behind here and go into the Synchro environment. And this is what I mentioned is just another way to view the files in a different software called Bentley Synchro, which is a cloud-based software. Okay. And you'll see a lot of, we'll show you some of the similarities, also some of the differences and limitations here for the different views here. Okay. Also, just as a point of, if something happens with my audio, please somebody just unmute themselves and let me know. I've had some trouble with a new headset here that seems to time out after 30 minutes. So if something happens here, just let me know. My audio is messed up, and I'll get that fixed up here. Okay. All right. Sounds like everybody can still hear me here as long as we're still on the meeting. Okay. So this is the information here within our Synchro model. Okay. So again, you see very similar. This is a similar view to what we started out in, right? Overview. You can see the adjacent roadway information. We have our bridge here and some of the different surfaces around here. Okay. So we have that ability to bring that information into Synchro. We also have the ability to do save views, similar to what we did in the DGN files. Okay. It's one of the things we're working out with Bentley right now is making sure that information comes through 100%. We've had to recreate some of those save views or update them. You can see in some of the group titles here, but we were able to get that information into similar form, similar save views that what you see again, that what we kind of went through here before. Okay. So I'll go through a couple of those here. Again, here's just a structured 3D view. We have some of the earthwork here coming in. All right. So again, these were all kind of coming through here. We could still do sections. Some things we'll note here. You can see that this isn't in some ways not quite as clean as what you see in the DGN files. Okay. And again, you just have to understand that these are snapshots in the model here. If I rotate this, you can see that this has a section depth. Okay, that we're trying to show certain information rebar here through the section. In this case, it looks like it's through a beam without a pile. So typical, if you're used to the integral abutment sections that we typically do here, you can see that information shown here. Okay. One other thing that I wanted to point out here that I failed to do in the DGN file here is that all of the elements in these models are smart, if you will. They have logic and they have information behind them. Okay. So I pulled up here just on a certain rebar set here. All the rebar in this model have certain attributes that are attached to it, so that anytime you select a file or a piece of information, we can view this information essentially as properties of that element. Okay. So here we have bar mark, so we can automatically find that information. We have size, grade. So we also included the bar spacing here. Okay, so this is so that when the contractor or whoever inspector clicks on a bar, they can quickly get the bar spacing. It'll automatically select that set, and we have the maximum bar spacing for that set, so they don't have to measure between each bar or anything like that. That information, including as well as the side and bottom and top cover of those particular bars. Okay. There could be some end conditions like hooks or mechanical splices, those types of things. And if we do have bars that are spliced, we have a minimum lap splice length here that's put in, and of course a notes section that we can put any information we need to, additional information for that particular set of bars. Okay. We also have them for solids elements, other bridge elements here. So in this particular case, this is our pile cap. And we have just kind of our MBI number, so getting our asset information kind of set up here, concrete class, fixity, location. Just sometimes it's easy to get turned around here. So you have to do is click on that and make sure you got your correct element here. And then we also have some information here that we can put in as details. So this is just listing at the bottom of pile cap certain elevation. That was something that came out of the review, that the reviewers just wanted to see that piece of information as part of that and not have to to calculate that or essentially dimension that when they get in the information here. And then just finishing this off, we have anything that could be some BC standards applicable to the element. Not only do we have them referenced, but we have that so that you know that you can click on that element and find that information that you need here for the BC standards. And the last set of information here for each one of the solid elements, we have the level of development key that PennDOT's using. One of their standards is element detail designation and element information designation. So we won't get into that here too much here, but that's for each elements here. In this particular case, the submission for letting, we have that as an attribute that somebody can quickly gain and glean from the models for the specific properties. Okay. So just kind of working through those saved views and diaphragm details. Again, you see reinforcement. Sometimes it's amazing that we can get concrete in some of these things, how much we put reinforcement in here, but we're able to kind of find that, have that information in a specific setup here. The other thing we can do is, this is particular to the Synchro control, they have what they call data visualization. In this particular case, we have some of the different elements set up here that we can essentially reference and filter out to find particular rebar sets here. So let's see if we can kind of pull this in, show you what that looks like here. So if we go to, it looks like that. Let me go to a different one. That one looks like it's off for a second here. Looks like what happened before here with it breaking seems to happen again here. So we'll go through and actually create the data visualization so you get to see that here too. So let's do an diaphragm here. We're going to create a new bar mark designation here, all of our bars. So let's look here. Looks like we have bar mark and rebar. We can generate that. Save that. Now it looks like we're in business here. So if I zoom in, you can see it gives kind of the rebar a little bit more of an attribute here, different colors. And now we can isolate certain bar marks here. So if I say I want to really look at that.
Audio is breaking up.
You guys hear me now?
I hear you well now. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Dale. No, I've been having that trouble with this headset, so I appreciate that. We should be good now, but let me know if it happens again. Okay. All right. So again, now we have our data visualization. So all of our bar marks are essentially, all of our rebar here are set up. If we want to just say, okay, let's say if we want to see our EA 8027 bars here, we can either just select them and have them highlighted so we can quickly find that within our model. So that's what they call emphasize. All right. We could also, they have an isolate here where they essentially turn everything else off and we just see those bars. Okay. So just some different features here with this cloud-based software, that you can, we've been kind of working with and seeing how we can, best convey this information in this particular views in these softwares here. Okay. And I'll just go through, let me go back here to our section view. And this is all, again, still completely, everything's to scale. So anything can be dimensioned through this here. You can find, particular start and end coordinates. So XYZ information for everything we have here. Beam notch dimensions, everything is, again, to scale. Information can be in there through that information. We could take specific sections through here, and again get different properties. So that's really what I wanted to go through here today, just to give kind of an overview of what that looks like in an actual project. Scott, I know I think you're still on the road here. Do we have time for questions here?
Yeah, you still have about a half hour, Joe.
Okay, so this is all me, huh? Okay.
Yep.
All right. Okay. I'll stop here for at least for now before we can, maybe take a look at some other things here. But does anybody have any questions? Looks like we got one in the chat here. So does PennDOT have any plans to offer an OBD training course to the public similar to previous offered ORD course? So Scott, I can start at what I know with that, and then if you have anything else to add. I do know that is in the works, Brad. There's been a course been developed and it's been going through internally at PennDOT and with the pilot projects. So I do know that is in the works and in the plans to offer that to consultants as well. Any other questions from the group? Looks like, is it Jason has his hand up? Go ahead and unmute yourself if you can and go ahead and ask.
Yeah, I just I guess my question would be, and I've asked this in the past, but it seems like you were kind of integral in developing this particular project. As far as development of this model, how does that differ as far as effort and time as compared to like a traditional project delivery, plans delivery and whatnot? Just so as we start to migrate into this, like we can start to prepare as far as design schedules goes. I mean, is this, and obviously there's a learning curve and it will increase over time, but I mean, just to start out, like what kind of we looking at as far as like effort and time to deliver compared to a traditional process?
Sure. So good question, and Jason, you hit the nail on the head. There is a learning curve, right? There's some different things. And again, Scott, you can kind of follow up behind me here, but I know that PennDOT's idea here is to get through these pilot projects and really document exactly, the ins and outs of the modeling, but what that deliverable will look like. Because a lot of the additional time that was on these pilot projects was just kind of working through. This is, okay, this is the first time this detail has been done. What does that look like in a model format, and how, what's being modeled and what's being in 2D details, for example, is a good one for bridge plans. So a lot of that is now going through and being documented in order to cut down. A lot of the time is just kind of working through, okay, what does that look like? And I'll be honest, sometimes, a good example of that is we went through and modeled, reinforcement in the beams for the particular project that you might have noticed here on some of the beam drawings. And we got through and realized that, that's probably not the best and the most efficient way to show that information at this point, and some of the limitations with the models and everything. So the second pilot we went through, we eliminated that and did more of a 2D detail for the reinforcement in the beam, since it's not scheduled, and the fabricator has some more leeway there. So a lot of that gets worked out there, and the plan is to document that to make sure that we don't go down similar rabbit holes, if you will, as this starts to become more in tune here. And there's another round of pilots. I think Alan said that there's nine out of the next round of pilots that are coming, have bridge projects in here as well. So we're going to be working through that and documenting what we have, and then pulling in any additional lessons learned and everything from that here. But we do feel, after kind of working through and understanding the model part of it, we don't expect large differences here in effort to model these projects versus doing the traditional way. Once kind of the learning curve going through a couple of these projects is and Scott, I don't know if you have anything to add there from your point of view, but that's just kind of leaning through what we've done, what we've developed, experienced, and gone through here with these pilots.
Yeah, I mean, the one at District 1 that they did, I think it's the same kind of thought, that up front there was that learning curve, there was extra time, but the more he got into it, kind of the comment was, if I knew what I knew now at the beginning, it would take me about the same time as what my normal project would. That's kind of what Mitch relayed for District 1.
Mm-hmm.
One change for like roadway side is there is going to be more work to the roadway designers from what they do today. I mean, the in-house project, we kind of followed more that consultant-based workflow, where if it was earthwork, it was done by the roadway side. So basically the excavation, the quantities, the stuff around the abutments was done on the roadway side for this project. For the District 1 project. So that's something to think about, is, there's going to be new things, surface templates, there's going to be linear templates. There'll be some stuff that the roadway side's going to have to learn as part of moving this forward.
No, good point, Scott. Thank you. Another question that came in here I see is, are we modeling the rebar in OBM and Pro Concrete, and will the rebar be set up in the workspace such as standard bar shapes? So another really good question here. So first answer is yes. We are modeling them in using the Pro Concrete tools. In this particular case, we were doing that, all the tools that are now available through OpenBridge Modeler. Okay, Bentley's kind of migrated the Pro Structures or Pro Concrete tools into OBM in certain cases, and also for certain tools. And then there is now a way to activate the full. If you have a Pro Structures license, you can activate the full tool sets from Pro Structures within there to do your scheduling and everything there. So yes, that's how this particular project and the other pilots are handled here. We do have the standard shapes in the ProStructures library that is currently part of the at least the test and the workspace that the pilot projects are using now. That has worked well for most of the shapes. We found some of the more complex shapes. If for example, some of the barrier bars that are coming up and that have multiple hooks, and especially those that they actually changed the standard hooks on some of the bars. In again, especially I'm thinking of the barrier bar sets. We found that even if you have that in the workspace correctly, sometimes that doesn't pick up the schedule. It doesn't pick up that rebar shape as well. So one of the things we are looking at, especially for those barriers and transitions, barrier transitions and stuff where the rebar is particular standard, we're looking at providing that information as cells, so that your rebar, at least your guidelines and everything that you're using for that is standardized, if you will, and you kind of bring that cell in. You have all the shapes already set up for you. You just have to basically click and say, okay, I want this bar to be a number 4 bar. It's got the guidelines there, and you can model it. So, so that's sorry, I was just reading Jason's comment there. So we've been working through that in some of the pilot projects with some of the transitions that they've done, and that's worked well. So we're looking at extending that to other transitions, other barrier transitions. Obviously, with PennDOT details, standard details, there's a lot there. So we're going to kind of work through priority based on what the pilot projects have. But if that continues to be beneficial, I see that being part of the workspace there. So not only the solids part of the transitions, the barrier transitions here, and let me get back to a better view of that. So you get some of those that aren't as familiar with that. We can get a better feel for what we're talking about here. So some of these, here where the guide rail comes in, all those shapes and stuff. This is a standard setup here that can be brought in as part of the workspace. So with that, not only the solids, as I mentioned, some of those bar transitions and everything here, we're looking at including that in the shape as well, since it is so standard. And also some of those bar shapes again are difficult. The program sometimes has difficulty, scheduling those and finding the correct bar shape, even if it's in the bar library. So we've been working with Bentley quite a bit here, hand in hand, to make sure and try to get not only the program updated, but just make sure that we're doing everything we can to utilize the program in the best way possible. Any other questions? Looks like we got another one coming in here. So will the model files for the pilot projects be made available so we can see how everything was put together? It's probably an answer or a question more for Scott here. Sorry, I keep passing them off to you here, but
eventually, yes. We have to wait till they have been advertised and released before we can share them. So, I mean, this one's out there, it's advertised, it's available. If you have access to ECMS, one thing to keep in mind with these projects as they go out, they are being put out and requiring pre-bid meetings for anybody that decides to bid on these too. So that's another step that we're taking as part of this, is we're not just throwing it to the contractor. We're sitting down with them and saying, okay, here's what's in this. Here's what we're expecting from this project too. So we're also doing that as part of the bids. That's something to kind of bring up here too. So they are getting to see what you're seeing here in a meeting for the pre-bids too. So I mean, we're going through some of that stuff. with them one-on-one with the different bidders, and then that allows them to actually receive the data and bid on the project. So that is a step that we took to kind of help and make sure that the right information is getting portrayed to these contractors, so they know the expectations when it comes to construction. So I would say once we get them out there, we'll try to set up an area where we can place some of these that people can get into them. Maybe even some of these become added to our sandbox in the future, because these are definitely further than what we have in our sandbox for Synchro that a lot of people have looked at. So.
Okay, thanks, Scott. Looks like Craig had a question here too. Using the save views workflow, will PennDOT have a standard list of save views that they would like to see in the federated model? And will that be added to the new CAD model so we can set up a standard container file or standard federated file to pull in discipline files so each project looks the same? So great question, Craig. Yes, we are. We currently have a list of save views, standard save views. That we're using for the pilot projects. We were kind of a couple of them. You can see you got some B's and C's here of the save view. So we've added some as we've gone through that. So that'll be, we're developing that as a standard save view. And then there will be a set. I envision a set that is again standard for each project, right? You'll have these, making up a number here though, you'll have these 15 views, 10 15 views, and then probably what we'll look at doing is going by element type. So integral abutments will have a standard set of views like this, that are 5 views for each integral abutment or what have you, or box beams. Or I think I see that being more helpful than just trying to fit things in to an overall, this is what you shall have for each project. We'll have standard set of views, but I think it makes sense to go to and what we're finding here with these projects it makes sense to drill down to another element level, especially for the standard sets. Like for example, integral abutment is a great example for the different sections that we always do. We have one at beams, between the beams, with a pile, without a pile. So kind of having that, having those as a standard view set, I think is the direction they're headed with a set of general views for every project. Okay, but really good question.
And something else on that, Joe, too, is the fact that we also have, there's going to be some additional file types for the naming of the files that'll be associated with these projects too. I know with just you broke things down a little bit more into separate federated files. So
yeah, no, great point. Great point, Scott. Yep. So that'll also be standardized. Even I think, and I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves here, but I see some of the next steps is setting up particular display styles so that we, for example, a general 3D bridge view, there's a specific display style that comes out that it only has these levels turned on, or it's starting point has these levels turned on. It doesn't have any of the roadway or other information turned on. So I think there's a lot more we can do to kind of standardize that and make it a little bit more standardized, if you will, so to make sure that the project, and I've heard Scott say this many times here, but one of the things that PennDOT's really trying to do is make it so that a project in District 1 looks like a project in District 6, kind of have that standardization across the state. So that's just again some additional things that I see coming down here as we continue to, and PennDOT continues to develop this process.
yeah, and display styles, that's something I know we haven't done a whole lot of internally with PennDOT in the past, but we are seeing some advantages to that, especially with the review process. We can highlight things, we can change symbology through that display setting, that display style. It gives us more control than some people have asked in the past about overrides and using the overrides for levels and stuff. This is actually a better option because you can do more visualization options than just one option with a level. So display styles is something that you will definitely start to see more of within the PennDOT workspace going forward.
It looks like another one came in here from Jason here. Since the save views will be standardized, will the contractor be able to request additional views that the designer will be responsible for? Will the contractor be responsible for any additional views that they would like to see? That, I see that, and Scott, again, you can provide input here. I see that as being very similar to our process now. The idea with these save views is they're a starting point for the contractor and other stakeholders to use and take. They can create their own save views. With any information, they can't really, let's say they can't add content in Synchro like this. They can't come in here and put, well, I want my bridge abutment to be a foot wider. They can't make those kind of changes, but they can turn off levels. They can manipulate the views and create their own save views. Sorry, I'm not in Synchro here, but same difference here. So they can they can do that within this software here, and and they have the ability to go ahead and create, their own save view. Maybe they want it over here, and they want to turn off the piles for whatever reason. Here. Okay, and this is what they want their save view to look like. They can go through and take that save view. Okay, so now they have another view here. So I think there's probably more information there since they have the digital files. They have more ability. So I think that would be the first go around here, and they can get the information. But in terms of requesting additional views, I would think it would be more like requesting additional information similar to the process that we would have now. Good question though, Jason. I thought I saw somebody have their hand raised. Did somebody have their hand raised and want to ask a question? Look like they are. Doesn't look like we have any now. Anybody else have any questions? Again, I wanted to make sure I left time for that. I figured there would be more questions here.
Yeah. Joe, I guess something else we could point out is for where we are today, out on the CAD training resources page, a lot of this is documented out there as far as some of the training materials. So we have some of that. It may not be up to date with what Joe has maybe learned in the last few months or whatever, but there is that initial training that we did internally for some groups available out there under the training resources today. So there is information that people can look at if they want to start seeing where we're going with this stuff.
And you might have to guide me here a little bit. It's been a while since I've been here, but it's CAD resource files.
Yes.
And then training.
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, we have, again, the ORD training, and we do have the initial release here of what we call the model-centric workflow user guide. So let me back up here one. I'll go ahead and paste this in the chat window if Scott's okay with that. You all right if I paste the link there? Okay. So yeah, and again, this is a PDF. This has a lot of again, workflow information specifically on the modeling aspects, how we create these bridge models. And so I would definitely encourage you to check this out. As Scott mentioned, thank you for reminding me of that. A lot of really good kind of workflow. And this is not just a copy or summary of the Bentley training. This goes into much more detail and goes into, okay, so now how do we get to a PennDOT detail from this template from Bentley OBM that doesn't fit what we need here? So we go through a lot of different situations of how you can kind of use some of the tools that are available to get, let's call it, further level of development, develop your models further than what you can with just the Bentley templates out of the box. It also kind of works with our workspace that we have out there with all the templates that we do have, and kind of goes through that, how we develop these and how we use those together to get our PennDOT bridge models to where we need them to be. So when Scott mentioned a lot of the information that we talked about developing, like the federated file, the federated model, and doing the save views and stuff, that's what we're developing now. That will either be a part of this or another documentation, depending on where that where that all fits in PennDOT standardization and their plan for all that, where that information sits. But it will be part of the standards that can be developed. That's what the next step will be available here shortly. Thought I might have saw one more question here. So, okay, so good question here. Looks like Gerard here. So is the workspace set up for other types of PennDOT abutments beside integral abutments? So another good question. This is something that we've been working with Bentley on for a while now. Is to some of the standards from BD 621 and 622. I know we've talked about it even on this call here. I think previously, we are working with that. We do have certain, let's call them certain situations, certain what we call different types. So there's with approach slab or with safety wings, without safety wings, with flared wings, with U wings that are all part of that standard, and that is actually some pretty complex geometry. So again, we are working with Bentley. They're using their generative components. Is the direction that we're going with that to develop those particular standards, which is kind of their most advanced and newest tool. So we are expecting that to be out here in the fall in terms of the other standard PennDOT abutments to be available for use, download and testing out with that as well. So, and that's generative components is just a tool that's available within the OBM or OBD download. So it's not a separate software that you have to purchase or anything like that. But that's the direction that we're going there. If I would say if you are one of the pilot projects that are coming out, we're kind of working with those teams to make sure that we have the specific cases that you're going to need to model. So if you're part of any of those pilots or have any kind of test case that you would like to see maybe before the fall timeframe, let us know, and we can potentially move that priority for that particular case, that particular situation, up to the front, and see if we can get something for you to kind of use within your project work. Okay. But all really good questions. Appreciate everybody chiming in here and asking questions. I think that's the last one in the chat. Did I see anybody else before we have a couple more minutes before we kick everybody loose? All right, Scott, I think that's looks like it, and I don't have any more time to go through any more demo, so I guess I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, thanks, Joe. I appreciate that today. Again, this is giving you kind of a preview where we're going, and some of the stuff to come yet. I will say that, like right now, the District 1 internal pilot project that's going on, we've been working through some excavation stuff, and I know I keep talking about a workspace update. There should be one coming in the next couple weeks that we're going to start including some items. So some pay items that we'll be able to associate with components, pieces like that. So that's coming in the near future. When that stuff comes out, you'll see another presentation, probably just kind of going into a little more in depth but as we work through this stuff, we find additional needs. We're going to continue to add stuff to the workspace and try to address the needs as we come across them. So again, just kind of pay attention to the newsletters as we get out, the videos. If you come to these, you know, we're recording them so you can go back to them. If there's something that you caught that, hey, I want to present this to somebody else within my organization or internally even, we're trying to provide the resources for you to do that. So again, if you have questions beyond this meeting, you know, reach out. I see there's looks like another question popped up. Process for requesting updates to the workspace. Best thing there to do would be send me an email what you're requesting. I'll make sure if it's something bridge related, it'll go on to Joe. If it's hydraulics, we have another group working on that stuff for drainage stuff. And again, a lot of this is being developed based on the pilots we're doing. So you may see additional functionality get into the workspace that's based on a pilot need today. We may not have everything in there right off the bat. Again, we're trying to address the needs as we come across them. Because again, we have a small team working on this stuff. So sometimes it takes time to get the stuff into the workspace too. But if you send us information that you're looking for, we'll either tell you it might be someplace in there that you're not thinking of that we've placed it, or we may say, okay, that's something coming up. I know that's something we're trying to also get some additional documentation on some of the requests coming in, because that's something we're getting a lot of requests. And one thing we're doing is if we have multiple requests for the same thing, that's kind of coming higher on the priority list because it addresses more users and more has more impact currently. So we're trying to address it that way. Again, small team, we're trying to get what we can out there. With that, looks like we're at time. Again, if you have additional questions, you can go out to the digital delivery webpage. There's ways to contact us through there, to the webpage, to emails and stuff like that. So if you have more, let us know and we'll try to address them either in a meeting like this, or we'll try to respond to you as quickly as we can. Appreciate everybody coming today.